Hi, how are you? Welcome to my kitchen again. Today I'm going to try and settle an argument with myself. Every once in a while I go to a home of lovely people who have invited me for dinner and they've spent hours making hors d'oeuvres beforehand. Then they serve dinner. Really, we shouldn't be serving hors d'oeuvres ahead of time. You either serve an hors d'oeuvre buffet, what we call the American cocktail party, and it is American. It is our baby. The rest of the world has taken it up after we did it. You either serve an hors d'oeuvre buffet or you serve a dinner party, but there's no reason to do both. So today I'm going to talk about serving an hors d'oeuvre party. It'll be fun, and some very interesting dishes for you that aren't complicated, they're not expensive, and they'll put on a great show, because that's the point of the hors d'oeuvre party. You want everyone to have a good time. The first one is a caviar mold. Don't leave me, just sit down and listen. It's a very good dish. I'm going to prepare the mold very easily this way. I have... Yes, okay, I'm ready. I want to be sure my gelatin was melted. I have melted in my little bitty saucepan here 1 envelope of gelatin. Now this is unflavored. You know what I mean? One of these little rascals. One unflavored packet of gelatin dissolved in 2 tablespoons of water and 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And you just melt that for a bit, and it's all ready to go. Now, into my pan here, I'm going to put a half of a small onion, all chopped up. I have these things all ready to go, you see. 3/4 of a cup of mayonnaise. I'm just going to measure these things rather loosely. There, that's about 3/4 of a cup, isn't it? You got that? Onion, mayonnaise. Now we're going to add a little bit of salt, just a smidgen. We don't need much. I don't want this to be too salty for you. Shot of Tabasco, probably 1/8 of a teaspoon. There we go. And a little bit of Worcestershire. Is that better, madam? Someone wrote me a letter and said, "You don't pronounce it right." And I was raised in England. She was very nice to tell me, but I've been practicing Worcestershire. All right? Is that better? Good. That was a teaspoon, in case you're interested. Then I want to add about 3 ounces of Danish caviar. And this is black caviar from Denmark. Lumpfish, as a matter of fact. It's not at all expensive. That was not quite what we want here. You've got to be very careful when you mix this so that you don't tear up the eggs, because the eggs are black already and they'll spread the color in the mold if you're not careful. As a matter of fact, you might want to add the eggs last. That's perfectly all right with me. Get rid of some of these. Alrighty. Now, we need to add 6 eggs now, and I've grated them, you see? They're all ready to go. Pour in the eggs, and we're ready. We have the gelatin, the lemon juice, and the cold water, which we've blended together, all ready to add now. There we go. And we have salt, Tabasco, the onion, the Worcestershire, 3/4 of a cup of mayonnaise, and the 3 ounces of Danish black lumpfish caviar, and the 6 eggs all grated. Very gently. Don't tear up the eggs when you do this. It's really going to be very attractive. You watch. All right. Color looks a little strange to you, doesn't it? Those are the breaks. We're going to put this into a jelly mold of some sort. I've oiled this one. This happens to be an English pudding basin, so that you can put it in water or put it in the oven, you know, and bake with it, do anything you want. Now, we'll put this in the refrigerator. It'll take about 6 hours, I suppose, to chill. And I'll put this one in, and then I'll show you what we have. I have one already made for you, of course. Here it is. Interesting looking dish, isn't it? And what we're going to do is to put a bit of egg on the top. I'll grate some egg so that, find my egg grater, here it is, so that we can improve the color. A little bit of grated egg on top will be just gorgeous. Just let it fall all about. You see? There we are. Looks better already, doesn't it? And a bit of chopped parsley. And we have our first dish, which is a caviar egg mold, and I think it's just delicious. We'll put it out here and begin with some others. A second thing that I want you to play with when you're doing an hors d'oeuvre buffet rather than a dinner party, you see. For a dinner party, I serve a few olives, maybe a chunk of cheese, and a glass of very, very dry sherry. Don't serve hard liquor before dinner parties. You'll burn out everybody's taste bud. Nobody's interested. Well, they shouldn't be. You're either cooking or you're drinking. That's my theory. But there's no point in mixing the two. So a little dry sherry will help your appetite. Hard liquor will kill it. And I must tell you once that in Chicago, someone caught me after I'd said on the air that you mustn't have martinis before a good dinner party. And he caught me having a martini, and he dressed me down for it. He told me I was wrong, and he's right. All right, the second one that we want to do is a piping cheese, or a cheese that can be piped. I shouldn't call it piping cheese. Sound like something from the Army. We want to put a pound of cream cheese in a bowl, and to that we're going to add a half a cup of mayonnaise. We're going to whip this up so it's in my mix master, you see. Pound of cream cheese, half a cup of mayonnaise, fourth of a cup of sour cream. Wait till you see the marvelous things you can do with this dish. It's just lots of fun. An eighth of a teaspoon of Tabasco. Here it is. There we go. Little Tabasco. You want things a little bit hot on the hors d'oeuvre tray if you're drinking, you see. And that's the point of a cocktail party. Supposedly, we drink and relax and talk with one another. That's the theory. Sometimes it works, and you know as well as I, sometimes it doesn't. But we'll hope your parties are good ones. About a tablespoon of soy sauce. Soy sauce in cheese? Yes, I'm doing the cooking. It'll work. And we need some Worcestershire. A little shot of Worcestershire. Oh, about a half a teaspoon. And some dry mustard powder. I'm going to put in about a half teaspoon of mustard powder. This is English mustard. You see, Coleman's, I think this is the best one in the market. I just love it. That's a good product. Now we want 3 herbs and a half teaspoon of each. Basil, a bit of basil, a bit of oregano, same amount, and a bit of thyme. Excuse me, how'd the parsley bottle get in there? A bit of thyme. All right. Now, did you get the whole recipe here? We're going to add some cheese to that, too. The grated cheese is somewhere about. Well, where did we put it? Right in front of me. No wonder I can't find it. Fourth of a cup of grated Parmesan or Romano cheese. Now, while this is mixing, I'll give you the recipe again. I'm going to put this on a very powerful mix master, or I shouldn't call this a mix master, on my KitchenAid. Very good machine. And we'll just whip it to death. Oh, it's hard to see in here. There we go. Now we've got it. Okay. Start slow on this, and then we'll whip it. Now I have a pound of cream cheese, a half a cup of mayonnaise, a quarter of a cup of sour cream, an eighth of a teaspoon of Tabasco, and a bit of soy, about a teaspoon of Worcestershire, and then a little bit of dry mustard, about a half a teaspoon, and then a fourth teaspoon of 3 herbs, oregano, basil, and thyme. Then I added a fourth of a cup of Romano or Parmesan cheese. There we are. Let's put in a little bit of salt and pepper, too. It's certainly going to need it. Just a bit of salt. And we'll crack in some pepper here. Remember, I don't use pre-cracked pepper. Remember that? Terrible stuff. Has no flavor at all. Okay, it's done. Now, let me show you what we have and what we can do with this, because it's fun to play with. And the kids will love to play with this. It's just a marvelous, very heavy, rich paste. And we want to put this into a piping bag. Now, if you don't have a piping bag, let me show you how to make one. I have a triangle of plastic, very thin plastic that you use for lining windows and all. I'm going to use this, or you can use parchment paper or very, very heavy wax paper. Don't try aluminum foil, it'll wreck, it'll go on you. The triangle goes this way. Can you see that? I think so. Holding it thusly, you want to form a tube. You just clip it around here. You've seen me do this before. So we'll make a piping bag out of this very, very quickly. And I'm really into using this light plastic in the kitchen a lot. It's just, it's great stuff. You can use it for pounding meats, tenderizing meats in between plastic. Drop the piping tube down into the bag here. You see? Now holding on to the bag, we'll put some of the cheese down the very center. There we go. So we can fold up the bag now. Now watch, you want to just fold under the tops here and bend it down this way, thusly, so that you can control it with one hand, you see? I've seen demonstrations by formal French chefs in which they suggest that you twist the top of the bag and hold on to it with this, so you have to work with 2 hands. Well, this way you have only 1 hand to work with. Works great. Show you what you can do with it. For instance, a cherry tomato. Can you see all of this? Cherry tomato. You cut the little bitty rascal about 2/3 through, and then open up his mouth and fill him with piped cheese. You see, like so. The crew calls this a Pac-Man tomato. Isn't that awful? A Pac-Man tomato indeed. But they're very nice for the hors d'oeuvre party. There we are. Put two of these aside. Let me show you another stunt. If we use some crackers, small little crackers here, we can pipe a flower on the top. Oops. That's why you need your hand free. You see that? You don't want things jumping around. So it works much better to hold it this way. You see? Put your hand in such a way that when you bend, the pressure from your fingers goes down towards the palm of your hand. So it goes this way, and it'll pipe right away. You see? From your fingers down to the palm of your hand, or the base of your hand. Works beautifully. All right, let's try it. I have some clams here, little bitty baby clams. These are smoked, and you'll put 2 on each one. That's a big one. And a couple more here on each one. Another. And another. Now that looks a little drab, doesn't it? So what we have to add are some parsley trees. And parsley trees are very simply made. Thusly, you take a sprig of parsley and just pull off the tiny little sprig, you see? This little bitty piece. So that we wind up with one little tree. And we'll put that right on our clam and pipe cheese hors d'oeuvre. The term hors d'oeuvre in French, you know, means a little work of art, supposedly. It doesn't mean a meal. And you and I just get carried away with hors d'oeuvres before dinners. We shouldn't have to bother. I really don't believe in it. All right, we'll set these aside and go on to some others now, if we can find room here. There are all kinds of things you can do. And the idea, of course, is to invite your guests in, give them a glass, introduce them to people that they've not met before, preferably, someone really exciting and new and different, and let them go and have a good time. And they should be struck by the table. It should have some nice color and that sort of thing. All right, so our piping cheese, we have some stuffed cherry tomatoes, some little clams on piping cheese, and now we want to do an artichoke and curried egg dip, or a spread, or whatever you want to call it, that I think is just delicious. There we go. I want to chop up 6 eggs, 6 hard-boiled eggs. Just chop them up rather coarsely and throw them in a bowl. Where did I put my bowl? Here we go. No. We'll use one of these. Chop up 6 eggs rather quickly, and then we're going to chop up a can of artichoke hearts. And you don't want this one to be too fine, so this is going to be called a curried egg and artichoke spread. Now, using the back of your knife, you see, if you use the back of your knife, you can take things off the board. If you use the sharp part of your knife, you're going to have terrific trouble because you'll keep dulling your knife. You see? Use the back, the non-sharp part as a scraper, and then you'll be all right. Now, 1 can, I've used, better be sure these are drained here. There they are. 1 can of artichoke hearts, and we'll chop these up very quickly. This is very easy to do, but I like to do a cocktail party in which everything is done before my guests even come near the house, so that when they approach the porch, I can greet them and sit down and have a glass of sherry with them right away. That's the best way. You shouldn't have to be doing anything at the last minute. That's the mark of a good entertainer. You know, you don't do anything at the last minute. Okay, now into that we're going to add 1/4 cup of mayonnaise and 1/2 cup of sour cream. I'll start with the sour cream. And some mayonnaise. 1/4 cup of mayonnaise. There we go. That's about right. Sour cream. And the only other thing we need is some salt and pepper. And then a little bit of curry powder. And I don't know what to say to you about the curry powder, because curry powders vary in strength so much that you have to really choose your own kind. That's a good one. Heavy with turmeric. Put in a little bit of curry. Mix that up. And we have an egg and artichoke spread for crackers. And if you don't use a bigger bowl, you're going to have an enormous mess all over your counter. Let's do that. Here's the bowl I was looking for. That's better. Okay, that's better. Much quicker. Okay, there. Now, let me show you something. If you put this in the kind of white bowl that I just had, and we're going to spread this on crackers, you see, it really looks very unattractive and rather drab. So I think what you should do is to put a bit of color on it, and I'm going to use some grape leaves. You see, just stick them right down here on the side and let them point right out so that you can have an additional bit of color. Color is very important on a table, particularly in a cocktail buffet. That helps, doesn't it, huh? Isn't that pretty? Parsley, I agree. You're right. Okay. There. Feel better? Now let's put that one aside and show you some more. My mother is fond of making a cream cheese dish with salmon, and she adds a smoked flavor to it that I think is awfully good. So you can buy some canned salmon and then use some smoke on it, or you can poach your own salmon fresh. This canned salmon has to be handled very carefully. You've got to remove all the bone and skin. I've done that, and then I ground some up for you, and I'll show what I have. Let's just trade these. I've ground up this amount of salmon, you see. It's a 1-pound can. Now to that, I'm going to add a bit of cream cheese, namely ½ pound. If I can find my cream cheese here, it should be right in front of me. Here we go. ½ pound of cream cheese to my pound of salmon. There we go. And some liquid smoke. I'm using Wright's. There's another brand on the market. I don't remember the name of it, but just a squirt of this. Probably ½ a teaspoon. There we go. That should be plenty. And a tablespoon of horseradish. A good fat tablespoon of horseradish. That's what does it. The black that you saw running there wasn't black at all. It's parsley from beneath my spoon sitting on the counter here. Parsley won't hurt it at all. We're going to put some in anyhow. And a couple tablespoons of mayonnaise. And then I'm going to add a bit of parsley. And I want to use dried parsley because a green parsley that's fresh will not hold up well. And this kind of thing you should be able to keep in your refrigerator for a few days and serve it, maybe for a second party. So I'm going to use dried parsley, maybe a couple teaspoons. Dried parsley. There we go. Got the whole recipe? I'm going to put that on the Mix Master now. Excuse me, on the KitchenAid. And we'll mix it up. And I'll give you the recipe again. In anticipation of a crowd full of people. Remember, they're not coming to eat dinner. They're coming to, they're coming to have a good time with one another. So you don't have to kill yourself cooking. But it does take time to prepare the little things. And it's the little things that makes the party go. It's the little garnishes and that sort of thing, you see? Okay, in my bowl then I have the salmon, 1 pound or a pound and a half if it's fresh because you'll lose a lot of moisture. We added a little bit of liquid smoke, about a ½ teaspoon, a tablespoon of horseradish, a bit of cream cheese, a ½ pound as a matter of fact, a couple tablespoons of mayonnaise, 1 teaspoon or 2 if you like, of dried parsley flakes, and now we're going to add the last ingredient. This is mixing now, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Well, I don't find another tablespoon. There's a tablespoon of lemon juice. Okay. There we go. Now this spread is very, very rich. Very, very rich. If you make this with a fresh salmon, it will not be quite as moist as this, and you won't have to use a bowl. But in this case, we're going to use a bowl. And we can't just stick it on the table. We're going to have to do something a little more colorful than that. So I've prepared a little bit of green hearts of romaine, and we'll make a quick pattern of 4 here. Anything to add color, anything at all. There we go. Now you crunch the dish in the center here. You see? Put the salmon in the middle. There. This is really a delicious dip. Nice spread. All right. And now we'll add some crackers to the edges here, which will also add to the color. And we'll have it ready for the buffet. I want them to come in and be absolutely startled as to which one they want to try first. You know, they're confused. I love to confuse people that way. That's good. All right, let's put that on the counter. Where? Well, who knows? Let's try this spot. There we are, along with the egg and caviar and the egg and artichoke and the salmon. We have some nice olives. And let me show you one more. Well, I've got several more, as a matter of fact, but I want to show you some vegetable things we can do. If you marinate little bitty vegetables, cooked vegetables, right out of the can in a nice fennel dressing, and by fennel I mean a good Italian dressing, you put a little bit of ground fennel in it. Remember, we've done that before for salads. We've done it lots of times, as a matter of fact. If you arrange some things, look what kind of fun you can have. For instance, here's some asparagus that I've put together, just frozen right out of the box, and I put it in the old plate with them, marinated it first in my dressing. Very simple. There we go. And we're going to try some baby corn. And in the center, let's put the artichokes in first. Some artichoke hearts that I've marinated in the same dressing so that people can kind of play about and choose what they like, you see? That's the way it should be. And the baby corn, we just put a little pile in each side here. You'll like this one because it's fun to eat and it's very colorful. Aren't these plates gorgeous? You're wondering about that. It's an interesting platter, isn't it? They're from a company in California called Lone Oak. You heard exactly what I meant to say. Lone, L-O-N-E, oak. And they make them in white porcelain, and this is a bisque porcelain. It hasn't been fired as long, you see? There. Isn't that gorgeous? I just love it. We'll put that in the middle of our buffet, so when people come in, come on, let these little rascals lay down here. When people come in, they know that their presence is appreciated in your house. And that's the point. A little parsley. Okay. And let's try this one here. Then I have some nice olives. And I want to show you a quick bread trick. If you cut Middle Eastern bread or pocket bread, you see, cut it into small wedges, and then open it up, sprinkle cheese on it, grated cheese on it, Parmesan or Romano, and then toast it in the oven, you'll come up with a lovely hors d'oeuvre that is just great. There it is. There's a whole plate for you. A lovely hors d'oeuvre that's just marvelous for the table. You'll like that. It's very crunchy. And finally, for my friend in Tacoma, Linda, look at this one. You're going to prepare in a bowl a bit of chopped onion, chopped yellow onion. See, you don't need an awful lot. A bit of mayonnaise. That's it. That's the recipe. Mix that up and spread it on little squares of cocktail rye. There. And then on the top of that, she whipped this up one night when I was sitting there talking with her about what we were going to eat for dinner. She said she didn't have any ideas. She went to the kitchen and made up this one. I think she's terrific. Sprinkle freshly grated Parmesan or Romano cheese on this. Then we're going to pop these under the broiler for just a few minutes so that the cheese barely begins to brown and the onions barely begin to cook. Okay, there you are. We're coming down the home stretch. I think the party's going to be ready. Now, let me show you one more thing that I think is kind of fun. A chef in Tacoma years ago taught me this one, and I think he's clever. What I've done was to arrange the clams and piping cheese and the little Pac-Man tomatoes, as the crew calls them, on a mirror. It looks very nice, but don't arrange these and then haul them around because the tomatoes will roll around. Arrange them on the table, and when your guests come, you see, they really see 2 tomatoes in each case, and when they reach for one, look at this. When they reach for one, some other cat from below reaches and takes it too. Huh? It's so much fun, and it's very colorful, and it adds a lot of depth to the table. And that's really what it is. So let me check my Linda's caraway rye, mayonnaise and onion, sprinkled with Parmesan cheese, snack. See how we're doing here. Be a second. We'll have those out in just a minute. Let's look at the rest of things. If you have questions today, and I hope you do, otherwise, if I haven't sufficiently confused you, I haven't done a good job today, right? So if you have questions, why write, and we'll send you a whole book full of recipes. We've made a piping cheese today, and we put it in cherry tomatoes and on a cracker with some smoked clams. We cut up a Middle Eastern bread, pocket bread, and doused it with cheese and broiled it for a moment. We marinated vegetables. We're serving olives. We've made a caviar mold, a lovely caviar mold, and the salmon mold, and finally the egg and artichoke dip. This one, I think, is probably going to be my favorite. These things are easy to do, and they should help your people have a good time with the party. Let me see if I can get one. I'll get one of these out for you anyhow. There. And then at the last minute, you sit down and join them at an hors d'oeuvre buffet with a glass of, well, I don't care what you drink at this point. It's all right, because these foods will support anything you want to do, and the alcohol will be cleansing, I'm sure, and probably conducive to a lot of good conversation. Got to have a lot of good nibblies, but don't try and do both. Don't try and have nibblies before a dinner party and then cook yourself to death. It just isn't worth it. So decide, tonight we either nibble or we cook dinner, but don't bother with both. That way you won't kill yourself and you'll keep your guests happy too. Enjoy yourself entertaining. It's very important to all of us. This is the Frugal Gourmet. Until I see you again, I bid you peace. Bye-bye.